Hi, folks. Everyone seems very quiet today.
Hey,
Hi everyone, I'm Mike. Waiting for the canonical 5 minutes to see the numbers increasing here. 9.
I think be careful about using company names. It could be a Red Hat 5 minutes or a Ubuntu 5 minutes or a 5 minutes,
All right.
even possibly a Microsoft 5 minutes these days.
I'm not sure how to respond to that, Mike.
Positively, I think no longer the enemy, I think is the phrase that resonates.
The is the friend of no, the enemy of your enemy is your friend, something like that.
No. I just no longer the enemy.
Greg, quick question for you before we begin. What is the process for suggesting topics for discussion in this forum?
Oh, so first there's 4 chairs. I think that can go to, any of the chairs should be prepared to speak to that. I I think that it's you can bring it to the chair, send it in email to the chairs. Hopefully the chair's email address is known. Generally, I think generally most things attestation related and that can be related to confidential compute are I think I personally view as welcome if they're especially if they're kind of bringing up new areas that we haven't discussed in the past. Um, and I think you can even just like put thoughts on the meeting notes, suggest things, and then that'll come up naturally, and we can discuss. But I think that like the chairs scan what people have entered in the meeting notes before meetings, and sometimes reach out to people and kind of get a bit more information. So it's pretty casual and loose, I think.
So
Okay.
I note that this issue 48 present slides on use cases for attestation is there. I'm happy to do that today or another day. I noticed that Dawal is up, and I wouldn't want to step on him or on Fabrizio, but I'm happy to do that if that would be agreeable to people.
I think Thomas is on point for coordinating today's meeting, so I'll
Okay, I
partner with
lost
him.
track of who was in charge. I apologize.
Yeah,
I'm
Thomas today.
which issue are you talking about?
It's the very top of the on the meeting minutes.
Okay.
It's backlog issue 48. Mike present slides on use cases for attestation. It's not actually use cases; it's a specific set of issues. But
Here you go. Okay, so you want to put this on today's agenda?
I don't want to step on anyone else, but I'm very happy to do it if that would be helpful.
Okay, let's look at the agenda and see whether there's any bashing to do.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we can start, I think. We're 6 past. So, hi everyone. Welcome to another SIG attestation meeting. So today on the agenda we have a few items, all Usamas as far as I can tell. 5 minutes concerns on attendance, recording, and discussion of agentic AI projects, and then SIG chairs voting for agentic AI project. So in terms of bashing, I'd like to bash on item 3 because the chairs are currently discussing this, and we will update the GitHub issue once the discussions are complete, but they are not at the moment, so we are not in a position to vote on that issue today. So I believe, well, depending on how much time the discussion on agentic AI project needs, and this is, I think, a question for Usama, we can slot in Mike's issue 48. Usama?
Yeah, hello. Could the chairs please clarify what exactly is the thing that is blocking? I mean, that's now more than 1.5 months that we are discussing it for several meetings, had a lot of discussions. There is a lot of support already, as far as I see, also in the meetings, also in the issue. So could the chairs please clarify, like, what is blocking from moving this process on? That's my only concern.
The only thing is that we haven't yet completed the conversation. We want to complete the conversation thoughtfully and then record the conclusion we have. That's it. It's just that we haven't converged yet. There's no other.
I think Osama, it's they all have different jobs, and coordinating things together can be tricky. I guess that's the only problem, right?
Yeah. We met last week. We didn't finish the conversation. We had other points on the agenda, so we haven't yet.
So you mean that you'd like to have meetings just with the chairs, or do you mean in these meetings?
We do have a chairs meeting to coordinate agenda and stuff like that. Yeah, and one of those we've discussed this.
So maybe if I put it differently, if you don't mind, like, what's left in the conversation? Like, was there any contention point that's blocking it? Like, or could you tell a little bit more about what is kind of left over in the discussion? Or is there something from my side that I need to clarify?
No.
Okay.
No, just the
Okay.
conversation between the four of us, it isn't finalized.
Okay,
so
then
it might be helpful for the chairs to understand if there's any urgency on your side in terms of deadlines or anything, or if this is just what you want to get things moving, which of course is understandable.
I mean, the IETF meeting is now only 1 month from now, and I would need funding for that. Yeah, that's currently the only urgent thing I have. And I think, like, I would like to have some feedback from the SIG as well, like what direction we should take, and which is useful for the people. Like, there are 2 different directions in post handshake already, which is kind of the SIG seem to point towards more of the shim layer, and there is another approach that's worth discussing. So I would have liked that we adopt it and the SIG kind of moves it forward, and we present something in the IETF meeting, so to move things on towards standardization.
Okay.
There's another note, which was a question about concerns on attendance recording, I noticed as well.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to move on to that point. Osama, do you have anything to share on this?
Yes, I believe that's kind of a concern I have on. I mean, as you know, I present in quite a few meetings, and specifically for this project, I have already presented in a few of the meetings of the SIG. It's a little bit hard for me to see, for instance, like, I'm now going to, let's say, recap the SIG, let's say, towards this. It's not clear to me who was there in the last meeting. The meeting attendees are only partial. I would have liked to see who was there in the last 2 meetings for my project, that who attended it. Let's say some of the key contributors of the SIG was not present. That would mean I have to present something differently as compared to, let's say, we have covered all the key attendees. They have all given their feedback. They are all happy, or at least they have listened to it at least once, and they have nothing against it. So that's the kind of things that I could have inferred if the attendance was complete.
Yeah, there's an important point here, that as part of the Linux Foundation, we do need to be recording attendance at meetings to avoid antitrust concerns. So I noticed that about 8 people have currently put their names down, and we have 19 attendees. So if you are an attendee, please now go to the minutes. A copy of the minutes. You can go to here. I just put it in the chat, and please add your name to the minutes under Tuesday, 2026, 02:10 right now. It's really important for your companies and everybody else's that names are recorded. So please do that right now. Thank you very much indeed. There's a fair point as well as to Osama's point, of course, as well, about not repeating where possible. But this is an important one that for antitrust and LF reasons as well. So please do record your name. Thank you.
And if someone has concerns, like if this is, let's say, I can volunteer to do it for every meeting. I think it will take just 1 or 2 minutes once we know who belongs to which company, if we have that data. So we can, I can help, let's say, the chairs, or to kind of within the first 5 minutes, I keep recording it. I can help as well.
Is there a way to get this information automatically from Zoom? Do you know?
I'm not aware of.
It is available for some, but I'm not sure all meetings. If you could please contact Rian or Renu to ask them if we can do that automatically. It may be possible, but I can't swear to it.
Okay, I will talk to Rian then.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, discussion of agentic AI project. Osama, what do you want to tell us on that?
I basically want to ask the SIG if there is any concern. I can, let's say, in 5 minutes, very quickly go through or kind of recap the slides, just in case anyone was not around. And maybe in 5
we
minutes.
Can ask, like, Osama, whether anyone was not around last time.
Sure.
So the question is, anyone here today was not present in a couple of weeks ago when Osama presented the project, Agentic AI? If so, please raise your hand so that we can know and Osama can go ahead. Otherwise, if everyone is learned, then okay, Yogesh. Okay, only Yogesh.
Yeah, I was also not present.
Okay, Shalin.
Yeah, from the last few meetings, actually, couple of meetings, I was not there.
All right, okay.
I'll also please remind people that you can always watch and listen to a YouTube recording of all of these meetings is available on the Confidential Computing Consortium's YouTube. So if you ever need to catch up, that's a great place to do it. I often do that, listen to it 1.5 times, whatever, and you can generally slow down if you need to. So what's worth doing.
And the pointer is here.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. Very good. So you have a couple of people, Osama, who weren't around. You're muted at the moment, Osama.
Yeah. So should I share this slides and get started?
So I suggest a very quick recap, and if there's extra things that need to be followed up again, people can ask for details. That might be the easiest.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm hoping that I won't take more than 5 minutes. So I guess unless there are questions, that's what I would like to focus on. Trying to get rid of this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I together with Vyacheslav and Jan-Marie, we did some further analysis on intra-handshake. Very quick recap, hopefully within 5 minutes. Ekar from IETF and many people from this SIG have already contributed to it. Thanks a lot for your feedback and support for this project. Very quickly, like we have different trusted execution environments like Enter-TTX, which is layered tester, ARM-CCA, which is composite. We make a system model from that. For formal analysis, on this side, we have any workload which is dynamic, that is changing at the runtime. Agentic AI as just one example use case, forming the security goals for that for the security analysis. On this side, we have a tested TLS protocol. Confidential computing primarily uses a tested TLS, but note that TLS 1.3 is just as an example. In one of the slides, I will show you that the attacks also likely apply to other protocols. And in this, we saw binding mechanisms and practical implementations which are vulnerable to these kind of attacks. And before going to attacks, we need a formal model. So we build a formal model, do formal analysis, find these attacks, and try to propose some mitigations. Feel free to interrupt if you have any questions in between. What kind of binding material can be used? I have a few examples here, like the base binding materials, the first four, and then their combinations. And it's not exhaustive combinations, many different, like from 4, I have different possible combinations, but only the ones which make sense or which are actually used in some implementations are mentioned here. Like number 1 is used by Meta's AI, number 5 in one of the internet drafts, and number 6, which is also one adopted project which is working on this. And the number 6 in Edgeless Systems Contrast, Cocos AI, and CCC Proof of Concept, which is also like this adopted project of the same. And a couple of questions that I asked last time, I would repeat if Yogesh or the other person have any insights to add. If you think there is any binding material or combination in this list that's missing, or if you are aware of any other intra-handshake implementation other than the ones which are mentioned here, so that we can add them to the analysis to be possibly as exhaustive as we can be towards the implementation.
So this is just intra in your example implementation. These are just intra handshake or
right. So that the focus here is only on intra handshake.
Okay.
That's what we analyzed.
Yeah.
And this is only showing the implementations which we are currently aware of. I think it was Matt Wilson who a couple of days ago in Slack posted one more. I am yet to see whether that is intra handshake or not. So other than that, we are not aware of any other implementation which is not covered here. So the question here is first, whether you know any binding materials in there, and otherwise, whether you know any other intra handshake implementation. Yogesh?
Can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. If you find something, please let us know on the list so we can proceed.
Sure.
So for this one, we had a lot of discussions. Also, we settled it down on the list. Finally, as the title says, devil is in the details. Basically, a lot of stuff related to the key schedule itself of the TLS protocol, and going as deep as to the HKTF extract and the hash functions and all that. But very quick recap of all the things, like without going into the cryptography and the nice fine details there. High level argument here is that in intra handshake, basically two problems. One is the key which is binding the evidence. It's unrelated to the security goals. It's the one which is used in this finished message. And for the encryption of this finished message, whether you encrypt this finished message or not, the security level remains the same. It's related to the privacy and not to the security. Second point is in intra handshake, if you derive the keys from this point in time, if you see this authentication part start from this point, which is the 2A message, it never authenticates the server itself. The evidence is generated before the authentication even started, and that's not the right thing to do. And yeah, these are the two high-level intuitive explanations of the issue. So, and for list, on the list, we had a lot of discussion around that. Jonat and Giri also contributed to this discussion, and that was settled down that this is, we have to bind it to the secret, which is the real one that the client cares about. That after the encryption, so let's say that's the decryption key with which it's going to decrypt that CVM, that would be the most important part. Again, please feel free to interrupt if you have, if something is not clear. This is, we discussed already that there are relay attacks, like if you use, so this is for mechanism number 1. I showed different mechanisms, 7 of those. And this is about, sorry, the other way. This is the first mechanism. If you only use the TLS nonce, it can be forwarded over, the genuine AI agent generates evidence, you get it back, and you show it as your own, you meaning the adversary. And basically, the verifying relying party establishes the connection with the adversary itself. Mechanism number 4, which is a little bit different, so I don't cover all of them, just to give some intuition, and it's very abstracted. It's a bit more subtle than that. What it's saying is that basically you don't have a protection if the private key of the genuine AI agent is accessible to some other entity other than this AI agent. And an example in this case is that if you do the provisioning at the runtime, there is some entity other than this entity which is provisioning this thing, this key to it. So there is, number 1, you can't prove that there is no other entity other than this which has this key. So there is someone who is provisioning it. Of course, that is trusted, but then there is a provisioning protocol which you also have to verify to ensure that it's only this thing and the trusted entity which have the 2 of those who have access to that specific key. That's the key point. And the attack is like that. If that adversary gets that evidence and the certificate, it can use that evidence and certificate within that TLS protocol, and still can establish the channel with the verifying relying party. The attacks can be beyond TLS. As I said, TLS is just an example.
Hey, Osama.
Sure.
Sorry, question
Yeah.
on the previous one.
Sure,
So
please.
you are assuming that the provisioning agent is compromised. I wasn't clear how the adversary got the private EK.
Right. Here there are 2 cases basically. Number 1 is by so for the provisioning, which means that some external entity to the genuine AI agent provisioned this key to the genuine AI agent. Right. So there was, let's say here, some, or maybe on the right side, some other entity which has provisioned it by, again, doing some protocol. And by doing that, that AI agent got this key provision to it. And the case that I am describing here is that there could be some vulnerability within that specific protocol other than the attestation protocol. And that provisioning part protocol vulnerability could lead to this key being already leaked over to the adversary. Does that
Got it.
make
Thanks.
sense? Okay.
Yes, understood. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions on this? And then I have only one final slide to then wrap it up. Okay, if not, then I proceed. As I said, it's kind of more high level than just TLS. That's our intuition. We don't have exhaustive proof to say that. That's why it states maybe beyond TLS. But we do have a preliminary analysis for another protocol, which ad hoc protocol, which uses attestation within in the intra-handshake form. That's the internet draft in the IETF, the Lake Working Group. And there, the analysis has shown that the same problem still exists because at a high level, as I said, like these keys are derived at this point are irrelevant for security. And typically in the protocols, you will see key exchange part being done first and then the authentication part. So if you do it already, bind the evidence at this point in time, basically you miss the authentication part. So these are 2 high-level things which we believe might also apply to other protocols. Of course, each one of those would need a protocol analysis to be confirmed, and might apply to noise too. That has nothing to do. I mean, these protocols have nothing to do with the project that we are proposing, but just to highlight that the problem might be wider than attested TLS itself. And the problem, in short, is binding evidence to unauthenticated pair, server in case of TLS, responder in case of ad hoc protocol. And the project proposal, in short, is to use post handshake. And I had some implementation guidance, I think, slides on the last one, which I currently don't have. Yeah, I can probably in just a couple of minutes show you the protocol proposal, which is in at least 2 and probably in the 3 meetings we have discussed it. The recording, as Mike also mentioned, like is available for all meetings. You can have a look in case you missed the meetings. That's the proposal. I will deliver these 4 things, which specifically the implementation guidance was requested. And I think it's required because in any of the projects that we have done, we have never provided people with what exactly do they need to do with all of these things. They are quite cryptographic and difficult to understand and all that. And that's something that we have to provide together with all the things. A technical report and pro-verify artifacts that will give formal specification and analysis. And then there are a bunch of readings which are summarized here, and specifically internet draft, which is covering this. And yes, that's pretty much it. So welcome any questions or clarifications on this. Quite a few folks have already supported this. Thanks a lot. Any questions?
Okay, if there are no questions, we can move on to Mike's.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Osama. Right, let me share my screen, hopefully. Assuming things are going well, you never know. So there's quite a lot of stuff here, and I'll try and get through it in time. But do ask questions as we go. Some of the questions may well be answered as we go through. So this is about not so much use cases as some different options, and something we need to discuss and understand as a community. This isn't so much a technical discussion or problem as a socio-technical organizational problem. It's a multi-partite problem or multifaceted problem, and I want people to be thinking about it and to be talking to their colleagues in different parts of their organization. So let me just go through it. There's some stuff people here will hate because I've oversimplified and I've taken particular examples, and I'm aware of that, and I'm sorry, but this is trying not to be too technical conversation. So here's a basic way of looking at doing attestation. Right on the left, you've got CPU, GPU, XPU, whatever. You've got some host components. You've got a workload in a blue TE. Fine. In the middle, you've got an attestation verification service, and on the right, you've got a relying party. Yes, the RATS roles might be better used here, but I haven't for a variety of reasons. Please do shout if I'm moving too fast, because I won't necessarily see your hand up. So here's an example process. I know it's a particular process, but it's the one I'm going to use here. So first of all, CPU, whatever it is, creates a cryptographic hash of the workload and the host components. It then signs that, combines it all together, signs it, sends it to an AVS. The AVS verifies it and optionally creates a certificate, depending on particularly what we're doing here. And then it sends that, and optionally the certificate, to the relying party, and it may provide the attestation measurement to the relying party as well, but that's not required. And assuming that the relying party is happy with the AVS result, then the workload is considered good. So anything horribly contentious here that you're going to scream about, or people are generally okay with the route I'm taking so far? Silence is assumed consent, so I shall continue. Okay. So, Dawal, shout. What can I do for you, sir? Or madam, I don't know.
Yes.
Sir.
So we use the term attestation result. Is there any difference between that and AVS result? It seems it would be even more concise to use just attestation result.
It might be, but I'm not using it again for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
So yeah, this is again this is supposed to be explainable to non-techies, and that's one of the reasons. Point taken, though.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Even if you are explaining it to the non-techies, I think that would lead to a diversion of the terminology. I'm a bit worried about that. For example, let's say if in the CCC we start and
I'm thinking of changing this to the RATS view or not, as noted another one. So yes, point taken.
Sure, that's a good thing to do. But I was wondering, you said a variety of reasons. Would you mind explaining those reasons? So that's also interesting for us from
no,
perspective.
I don't have time. Is the answer to that?
Okay, sure.
And some of them are just I wrote it quickly and I didn't think it all through. That's part of the reasons. So
okay, if there are good reasons, that would be good to put it on the list.
Some of them are good, some of them are not good. I'll admit to that. Okay, so let's carry on. So again, here's kind of a view of the world, a particular view. So at the bottom, we've got CPU, GPU, XPU, whatever. We like to have firmware and microcode, and then within the TE, we've got a bunch of stuff. Some or all of these: data, application, container image, maybe other applications, operating system, VM image, UEFI, and location sitting around the bottom because it is added to some attestation measurements. We know. So these are all things which are likely to be or may be in the measurement. So let's now talk about what criteria are used for verification. And this is an example, right? You might say that an attestation verification service is aware of firmware and microcode versions, and it keeps up to date with those, and of which CPU or GPU families are up to date and which aren't. And it's likely that kind of stuff fits there. Whereas maybe the other stuff, sits in the relying party. Maybe the relying party is someone like JPMC, and it wants to have lots of information about the data and the application and all the other bits and pieces, maybe all the way down to the UEFI, maybe not. This is an example. But the point is that some stuff may be better kept in one place organizationally, not technically, but organizationally, whereas other things may be worth best kept in another place. And this is, I would typically expect that relying party would really care about the data in the application. There are some things that if you've got multiple relying parties talking to one AVS, well, they probably share that. There's shared stuff there that maybe, the container image and the operating system, UEFI, I don't know, maybe that all are things that lots of relying parties are going to care about and have the same values. And then other stuff which is very likely to be shared across multiple relying parties is kind of the lower level stuff, because that's unlikely to change and there's only so many versions of that. So one thing I'm very clear about, and Jiri, you've just said something very similar in the notes, the chat, that is that the relying party should always control policy for all components, right? And the more granular the policy, the better in my view. So absolutely 100%. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't do that, but it may delegate policy for some or all components. It may say, you know what, the AVS is going to have better up-to-date information about this, and I'm going to trust it to do that, right? Now, the other thing which is kind of important here is that if you're going to create a certificate, it is much easier if it's only done once. And that means it's much easier if policy is applied at one entity, because you want to be doing the certificate signing at the last piece, right? So this makes things kind of tricky and interesting. So the next question, and this is what I really want to bring it to, is where is policy applied? 12.
Can you please go back to the previous slide?
This one?
In this case, are you referring to, so in RAT's model, the policy is applied at two levels. One is at the verifier side, the other is at the relying party side. In this slide, does the term policy refer to both, a union of both policies?
I'm absolutely not using RATs at this point. I'm trying to think about policy in the broadest sense. And this is part of what I'm trying to pull out. What does policy look like? So I'll maybe answer some of your questions as we go through, because policy is the concern here from my point of view. So we'll see if we answer it. So here are kind of two ways of applying policy. One is to say that all policy is applied at the AVS. We have somehow the relying party lets the AVS know all of the policy bits it cares about, right? Everything from the data, the application, or container image, all that sort of stuff. So if you are JPMC and you are creating 100 container images a week, and you're putting those around, somehow you need to manage the policy in the AVS to which you subcontracted, assuming that's what you're doing, and that all needs to sit there. And that's one option, right? Another option would be, well, we cut the cake slightly differently and say, well, actually, we will apply the relying policy will manage the data in the application, but all of the other stuff will be lower. And so that is splitting off where policy is applied. And so the AVS may be checking the signature and maybe checking the lower pieces are good, but the checking of the hash in the higher levels may be down to the relying party doing it itself. And so there are other options which are possible and plausible, and UEFI may be something actually that relying parties care about. Firmware may be things that something that other relying parties care about, and location is something that we may see there as well. And Greg, we have a comment from you, which I'm kind of half seeing stuff that B is in the chat. What's that? Anything? So Greg asks, is there a presumption there should be one way to slice the cake? No, it's exactly the opposite. And this is the problem, that we don't, there will never be one way to slice the cake. And we need to be open about that. And we need to be creating systems and approaches which allow for multiple ways of cutting the cake. This is a large part of what I'm talking about here. Does that answer your question?
I thought that was obvious, but...
Well, I'm not sure it is to everyone. I'm not sure that it is to everyone, because often we're talking at the low level here about about particular protocols and doing RATs in a particular way, but operationally things become much more complex very, very quickly, and that's why I'm trying to get people talking about this stuff. Usama,
I know one thing I've learned in running the MAA service for 5-6 years or so is over time, a very typical pattern is things that we have kind of are fixed in statically done in our service. Over time, we're having to add extensibility points, basically to allow customers to slice the cake differently. So I've gone through this exercise, probably at least half a dozen times, where it's like, oh, okay, there's an important enough reason for an important enough customer that we're going to spend burn a few weeks of dev time and give this additional way to slice the cake that gives them the knob they need. And you're kind of right in that, like, the starting point was seeing things as much more static and one way or very few ways, but over time it's like kind of dawning on us that there's just the need to make just put the knobs out there. You can have default behavior, but get the knobs there so people can change it.
And I think one of the things that I'm trying to address is this like to be, could we say that in Japan there's a particular preference, or that in the financial sector there's a particular interest, a particular approach, or if you're buying most of your apps from ISVs, there's a particular process, whereas it's different if you're writing most of the stuff yourself. And these are the sorts of things that I want to be kind of trying to get my head and our heads around. Usama, you've been very patient. Thank you. What can I do for you?
Yeah, I wanted a little bit of a clarification on the location. Like, how do you expect this to happen as part of the protocol? Because we are designing, as you know, like the post handshake, which we are standardizing.
The answer is it's very difficult. I am aware of one unstable approach to this, but it's not stable, and so I don't have an answer to it. I'm just saying I know some people want it, and it's important for things like digital sovereignty. So we should probably be thinking about it as we go along. So I do not have an answer. It is a very much an open question here. Very much so. Okay.
Okay, sure, that's fine. So whatever unstable you have, it would be great to have that link to.
I don't have permission to share it yet. I'm hoping that will change soon.
Okay, sure. Whenever you have it.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating and needs some work. So that's good. Thank you. All right. Right. So here's a few of my thoughts and some other people's from Rene in particular about what regions there are for and against a policy delegation. Also, Nathaniel from AMD put some of these in. So, delegation, it's all in one place. It's faster, right? It may be more expensive to run it internally. Also, certificate signing can be in one place. Against delegation, well, you're leaking information. It may be expensive to do it internally. There's integration complexity, management complexity. You may be talking to multiple AVS entities, about which more later. Complexity of trust relationships, which is tricky, and some other thoughts from Rene there as well. So why does this matter? Oh, Osama, yep.
I think I have the same confusion that Dhawal has. So if you go back to last slide, please.
This one?
Is it? Yes, please. Could you maybe make it more concrete by saying, is this the policy, just to get it clear in my mind, is this the policy for
policy delegation is doing that. It's getting a tick. It's getting a tick. Getting a what's it called? An attestation result from one place.
It's the appraisal policy for verification attestation results rather than the.
Well, I'm not sure whether attestation result is a good name here, because not all of the decision is coming from the AVS in the other case, right? So in this case, the attestation result is the same as we're good to proceed. In this case, the attestation result, what is coming from the verification service, is not sufficient to make a good decision, because the top bit, the decision has been made in the relying party. So the attestation result is different to what we talked about before.
I would say it's very confusing for me, but probably.
Well, yes, that's part of the problem. We don't have the names for it in the ways we've been talking about it before, and that is why it's confusing and why I'm trying to work out. This is my first go at it, and having these sorts of comments really helps me understand what is confusing, what is not confusing, and why that is. I think Greg was next.
Are you sure? I think maybe Thomas was next, but
okay, Thomas. I don't quite understand how Google Meet tells me who's next. So Thomas, go for it.
Okay. So yeah, I echo Usama's concern about terminology, because RATs, if you use pure RATs terminology, an attestation result doesn't need to be a final decision. It could be, a partial decision plus some other claims, and then because you always have a further step down in the relying party to apply a further layer of policy on top of the attestation result. So I think this is already modeled in the RATs architecture with names and roles pretty well defined. I don't think there's a need to rename things, and because that's really create some confusion, at least in the mind of people that have spent a lot of time with 9334 in the past 2
Yeah, but that may be part of the problem, right? That if you spent too long with 9334, that we become we think in that particular way when it may not be the right way. I'm not saying it is that is the case, and I'm not sure yet either. And honestly, I started doing this stuff before 9334, and therefore it's not the way I think, honestly. But it may be that we can use a lot of that stuff, but I'm not sure that the way that explains it is the sort of way that enterprises necessarily think about this stuff.
Okay, so just to give you my point of view, whatever you have described here can be conceptualized in terms of 9334. But that's
okay. Now that's certainly useful input. Thank you. I think it was Greg next.
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking is I'm not sure that you can have this conversation without recognizing different categories of policy. So when I think kind of about the flow, there's multiple steps, at least two. There's a step of saying, what's a trusted statement about the environment I'm trying to make, I'm trying to assess, right? So there's policy around that. What is, minimum firmware SVN numbers and so on. But that's all about just getting to the point where now you have something you trust as an accurate description. The workload ID is this, the running app is that, the CPU is, running all up to date, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the policy of, okay, I as a relying party am going to take an action based on evaluating this trusted description of this thing, right? And that's a different chunk of policy for different purpose. So, and the RATS architecture doc, I think, has different names for those two policies. But forgetting if bubbling up a level, I'm not sure this conversation is going to take us and the community to a great ending place if it tries to smush those two things into one pot, stir them up, and not distinguish them. I may be wrong, but there's just
and which is if that's what comes out of it, that we feel that the definitions are good and can be applied, then we need to find ways to apply them in real world in ways that they're being talked about. Because I rather suspect that most enterprises out there can't make that distinction and would possibly do it differently, and that's part of what we need to discuss.
And sometimes the relying party doesn't want to, necessarily be in the business of kind of understanding and participating in that policy for like what's allowed. What does it take to describe a trusted environment? But sometimes they kind of get dragged into it. Like, are you going to hold your partners?
That's why you may choose to delegate here, right? This is that point there. But being explicit about when you do and when you don't and why you're doing it and what trust you have to have in the AVS or AVSs, because there may be a chain, is something we need to be more explicit about.
I think there's a nuance, like the sentence you just highlighted. There's the one with the where you highlighted the delegate statement. Yeah. I think that there's the nuance there is sometimes relying parties, it's like they need to, at the end of the day, make the decision, like, do you want to force the environment that's being attested, what standards do you want to hold it to, let's say, in terms of, how quickly it refreshes firmware for the CPUs or whatever they're running in.
Yep.
And yeah, and sometimes there's business reasons for doing that, right? So they may have
exactly. So this is why it's a socio-technical organizational problem and not just a technical problem. Yeah. I need to leave in 4 minutes, and I'm not here in 2 weeks' time. Do you want me to try and finish this or not?
So can I just say one sentence that I wanted to say, and then feel free to react to that, or ignore me, because I was about to say something very crass, which is we as a community here tend to severely overcomplicate attestation to the extent that it is almost like not understandable by a layman. simply because we like to say, oh, but you can do anything. You can do this, you can do that, and you could do it here, you could do it there. You could do everything. It's so great. But along the way, you have to be an attestation expert to even understand what you want to do. And I'm not sure if this is where you're going with these slides, but if you plan to have these slides also for someone that is not an attestation expert, I would suggest to extremely trim down all of the technical
I
just came in.
Absolutely don't. I presented in TAC, but this is part of the problem. We need to get to a position where we can explain the things that need to be explained properly and importantly to non-attestation experts. And that is absolutely part of what we need to make happen.
Yeah,
so
and
thanks,
so,
Fritz.
Exactly. And in that sense, I would throw out all of the red terminology, make everyone here angry, throw out all of this policy debate, make everyone here angry.
So
that's
that
kind
was
of my 2 cents.
One of the reasons I've not used it. That's one of the reasons I've not used it, honestly. Dewal.
In the text that you're highlighting, that implies one way of looking at the division of policy, which is along components, but it may not be just that. It could be portions of policy around a particular component. For example,
agreed.
I could say,
agreed. Yep,
okay.
100%. I don't. Yes, this is all parts thereof. There we go. As easily done. Right. So no problem at all. So, okay, I'm just going to try and finish this off quickly. So why does this matter? Well, it matters because this is the world this is actually going to be. You're going to have multiple aligned parties, multiple AVSs, and multiple workloads on multiple hosts, right? And we're going to get a combinatorial explosion, particularly if one company wants to split certain things in certain ways, and maybe it has one set of policies for things it produces itself, another policy for things it produces that gets from ISVs, etc., etc., etc. So it becomes really, really complex. And it's about 20 years since I did any UML, and this is my attempt at a UML view of some of this stuff. And there are lots of one-to-ends, right? And that always worries me when I'm doing, and I don't pretend this is correct, so please don't pull it apart. But it's just an idea, a way to try and show that this stuff becomes very complex very quickly. And so, and also, I think in the real world, if you are someone like JPMC, you'll have multiple workloads, you'll use multiple AVSs, and also that each AVS you use will have lots of other people. So part of the problem, in fact, the thing that worries me the most is how do we manage policy? Even if we push everything to the AVS, even if we do that, the management of that is going to be really, really complex. And building an AVS which can be operated in a secure enough way with appropriate availability and trust in the right places by the right people is going to be really, really hard. And there's going to be significant management burden from relying parties and other people. And we need to start thinking about doing this now, because if we do not fix this, confidential computing is not going to become ubiquitous. And the place that it needs to be fixed is in the CCC. Now, the attestation SIG is not the place to fix it. The TAC is not the place to fix it. No, there's no one place to fix it. But we need to have this conversation, I strongly believe. So there's a bunch of other things here as well. I will share these slides in the minutes. And please do feel free to put comments on them. But I want us to think about these. And if you have stuff that you want to get involved with, and if you want your company to get involved, please shout. Because another thing is, who should be the AVS operator? Who should be doing this? It's all very well, coming up with lovely open source projects that do this, and we must do that. But who runs them? Because this is important. So I absolutely have to go, I'm afraid. But you have 30 seconds to try and get stuff out of me. What can I? Yeah.
Can you specify the target audience? Because I'm not sure what feedback to give to
this thing here. It's my brain, and anyone who will listen to me in the CCC. So people in the CCC who are clued up enough to understand what the problems are. That's all it is at the moment.
So it's a call for action inside CCC.
Yes.
Okay.
It's that. Mike's. I'm adding the slides on ABS stuff.
While you are writing, so maybe very quick in 30 seconds. So I think this is kind of nullifying whatever we have done over several years, trying to bring the society, community into one agreeable thing. And this is kind of nullifying that. That's my whole concern about this.
It's absolutely not intended to do that. It's trying to say that we need to have, in the same way that UML has different views, we have different views on the problem. It may also be that we need to improve rats, which is fine. If we decide we need to do that in the longer term, that's great. We could apply what is there to rats if we want to do that. I'm not sure that's the case or not. I'm absolutely not trying to stamp on technical stuff at all. It's just taking a business and organizational and social view on the stuff that we've already produced and saying, is it enough? Do we need to put another view on top of it?
Then it should be in the tech. It should not be in the SIG. So I'm confused about the purpose of presenting here. Are you looking for some kind of
because you guys do attestation and there are different people who turn up to this and it is relevant to you and to your colleagues, and that's why I'm presenting it here. And because I'm the ED and I get to do this stuff, right? Sorry, that's a bit crass again. Right, I need to leave, guys. Thank you so much for your attention. Email me, put comments on the doc. It wasn't not meant to upset or confuse. It was meant to worry, but to add call to action. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye. All right, folks, unless there's any final thought, we can wrap up now.
Yeah, I just want to add a quick comment on this Mike's presentation, although he has left. I want to remind the chairs that we had a lot of discussions in the beginning. Everyone was coming up with his own terminology, like this AVS, like this verifier, appraiser, and blah, 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 like so many terminology. We have spent a lot of efforts in doing all of this, both from development perspective, standardization perspective, from formal analysis perspective. And I would like to really take a strong stance against let's say if the executive of the CCC starts spreading like this different terminology, I think this will lead to a lot of diversion, and we should try to map it over to the terminology that we have as far as possible. So there is the things or the efforts that people have done over that remain stable, and we try to converge rather than diverge. That would be my request to the chairs.
I fully agree. We have adopted the RATS terminology a long time ago. We have this cheat sheet that's been there for 4 years now, 3 years maybe. So yeah, fully agree. We will need to look at Mike's document and see where there's the divergence and how we can reconcile any divergence there. Because I think it's worth having a unified way to talk about the things. If among this small community we are already able to splinter, then there's no hope that this stuff can go in the wider world.
Cool.
Anyway,
thanks.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for the great conversation. See you in a couple of weeks. You all, bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
A couple weeks,
Thanks,
everyone.
bye.
Bye.